Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about coverage metrics. There are two main ways to calculate how much of your code is being tested and get a percentage. There are code coverage and branch coverage. Code coverage means the lines of code that are being tested in at least one test case divided by total number of lines, and the other one is branch traversed inside at least one test case divided by total number of branches. And branch happens every time you are having a conditional statement, and your application can go to inside different passage and result in different state. So someone came up with these metrics and we can calculate them and get a percentage. It can be 10%, 50 or 60 or even 100%. The low numbers indicates that your project has a big and serious problem and means that you're not testing enough. But the high numbers doesn't show much. You can have 100% code coverage and still have bugs. So for my demo project, I have a very simple CRM application which keeps information about customers. You can get them, post them, and change them, delete them. And in my project, I only have one unit test that checks if the date of birth value object works correctly or not, and only tests one case scenario. And this is my date of birth, which only makes sure that the date of birth is at least for 1 day ago. Now let's calculate the code coverage here. I am using Community Edition, which is free but limited, so I don't have much testing options here other than a very simple but useful test explorer. I can run my test here and get a view of how long it takes, how many tests are being run. I can filter them, make a playlist, or run them again, and also Visual Studio shows me if any part of my code is being tested, how many tests are using this piece of code, and if the tests are passing or not. How we can calculate the code metrics? There are analyze here. Analyze only gives you the code metrics, not coverage metrics. It can give you the information about psychometric complexity, depth of inheritance, class coupling, and things like that. And there's a light bulb here somehow, and green means it's okay. I'm doing fine, but at the end, my project is very simple. So for testing, I need to go to third parties. Of course, Microsoft has this very cool tool, dotnet test, that is installed with dotnet SDK, and you can use it in command line to run tests. And it also has a very useful feature called collect, which collects information about coverage metrics in your project using this a library called Coverlet. Coverlet Collector is installed in your tests project by default if you are using the test template from Visual Studio. And Coverlet can collect information about tests and which methods are being tested, which lines are being tested, how many branches are there, and at the end can give you the coverage percent for methods, lines, and branches. But using .NET Collect is not easy. I don't like this solution. It works. You can use it with different parameters, different arguments. It works, but it's not my favorite way to do this. There's another tool called .NET Coverage, which is more specific about testing and collecting information about testing. It has some very useful commands and can export information in different formats like coverage raw XML, but it's not also my favorite way to do this. I'm interested in more like using Coverlet. Coverlet is the library itself. Dotnet collector is being used in my test project already. I can use Coverlet MS build if I am using test information for my build process or in my CI/CD. But Coverlet console can give me information about code coverage in my project directly inside my console. So this is where I would go, and the easiest way to collect information. And you can see here that things like .NET Test using .NET Collect in the background already. So .NET Test Collect is using Coverlet Collector in the background anyway. So if we go to or we use this .NET Global tool, we are not losing anything. It's very easy to use. You can use .NET Tool Global to install, which I have done already, and you can run this command to run tests and collect information. Let's copy this. So the result is somehow like this. I'm using Coverlet. This is the path to my test DLL, test assembly, and we're running target with .NET, and the argument is test no build. I'm not building again. I'm just using the builds that are there before. It just makes more sense. It's faster. Also, the Coverlet insists of not building because it can interfere with the test coverage results. So let's run this. Wait for it. You can see these are the results, and my sales radar project has 2% line coverage and about 5% branch coverage, and middle coverage is only 2%. And my project has two references, two main libraries, but test is not covering both because it's not referencing the web API project itself. I can do this, and I can rebuild, and I can just run the tests again, and this time I get the sales radar web API, which is 0% in all coverage metrics because we are not testing it. And the average drops, but it's more realistic for our case. At this point, I have a coverage JSON file. This is the default file that Coverlet generates with no setting. And you can see the coverage metrics in JSON format, if any lines are tested and branches are tested and things like that. But reading this file is very difficult. It's very long and too much information in here. We need a tool to convert this information into readable results, and to do so, let's use report generator, which converts information in Coverlet Collector into HTML or other formats if you may need. It is also a global tool that you can install very easily, and it has very parameters to set the results, but we are more interested about report types. You can have different types as your report. You can generate badges or HTML or dark or light HTML or things like that. And badge is very simple, things like this if you have seen these in different GitHub projects. But let's see what happens if we go for HTML inline. First, let's make sure that the format is OpenCover. OpenCover is specifically targeted for .NET projects, and can grab more information about .NET projects, and generate a XML file, which is enough. And let's do this. Let's run. You can see the percentage again, but at the end you also get an XML file here. You can open it in any browser, and it is more readable, at least compared to JSON, and shows you the line coverage and branch coverage here at the summary part. Also each module and which modules are being tested, now which lines are being tested. Now let's use report generator to generate the HTML file. You only need to set the file name, and target directory is a folder that I want to have my reports generated in, and report type, which is HTML inline, which makes every references for my HTML inside HTML file, like any CSS or config needed to run HTML. So it didn't take much. Now I can go to coverage results and use index file to see the results, and you can see the line coverage here 1%, and branch coverage is 3%, and different libraries or modules are being shown here. And for my sales data is the percentage is 2.5% for line coverage, and for branch coverage I have 4.5%. So let's go to sales radar, and let's temporarily remove branch coverage. And date of birth has 62%. And I can go directly inside it and see the summary here. You can see there's a branch here. This line is not test covered, and this branch is not covered. And now we can add more tests and generate the results and see what happens. So let's add more tests here, and we can run tests using the test explorer here. Tests are passing. We covered more lines and more branches. Let's rebuild, because we are using the test assembly file. We need to rebuild it, make sure that it is a newer version of assembly. And let's go back and run Coverlet again, the same information. Also, let's run report generator again, and you can go back and refresh this, and you can see this line is not covered, but this branch is still not covered. So line coverage went from 62 to 75%, but branch coverage is still missing for 50%. So doing this over and over again can be cumbersome. So let's use a batch file and run Coverlet and report generator at the same time. It's only one command to do so. You can add new item to your project. Let's call it run coverage report.bat. I set echo off, not to show the commands again and again each time. And this is the same command that I ran inside my terminal. Just copied and pasted here. Again, this is the same line that I ran in my terminal for report generating. And at the end, I'm using a start to open this file, and it will automatically find the default browser in my OS and shows the HTML file inside the browser directly. So let's save everything and let's go back here. We zoom out a little and let's go for run coverage reports.bat. But before we're running this file, let's add more tests. I go to date of birth and let's check for the other branch that we didn't check for. You want to make sure that it throws some exception when the date is not valid. So let's save this and let's rebuild the solution. And run this batch file again. As you can see, the tests are being built and the index file opened by default at the end. Also, I can go back here and refresh this one, and you can see these branches are also covered, and I have 100% line coverage and 100% branch coverage. Method coverage, unfortunately, is only for pro version, which is, I suspect it is paid. It doesn't matter, we get at least some information, and we can go on and on and on for every class in our application and make sure everything is tested. Some parts of your application don't need to be tested, like this init file. You can use filters here, class filters, to filter out any part of your application that you don't want to end up in the report. It's very easy to use. Class filters, just the namespace or class can be enough. Also, if you can exclude assemblies or files for that matter. Everything is shown here. So if you need to remove those parts of reports, it can be done. Also, we can run the batch file after build. This can be done using settings. If you go to settings in your project and go to build process events, you can run batch file using call method in post build event. So every time I rebuild my project, I want it to call and run coverage report.bat. But the problem is this file is not inside my test web API project. It's in the root folder besides my solution. So I need to direct this command. To do so, we have pre-built macros in Visual Studio, and you can find the solution directory using this macro, which includes trailing /. So if I just copy this here and save, I can run this coverage report. But before running this, let's have different files, because we need also more settings here. Let's do update coverage report.bat. We need everything in here other than the start part. Also, I need to go back to folders, cd, because we are inside project folder when we are running this batch file, and we need to go back up 2 folders, 2 levels, to reach the test folder again. So also let's go back here and change this to update coverage. Let's save everything and now rebuild solution. If you go to output, you can see what is happening in the build process, and you for a moment saw the coverage metrics results here. Let's find it. Yeah, we have the coverage metrics here showing, and you can see the line coverage and branch coverage improved. And let's go back to our sales, to this summary, and we have everything we needed. We have 2% line coverage, branch 6% line branch coverage, which is improvement. And now we have an automated way to generate these results using only free tools. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, you can like and subscribe and share this with your friends.